Michael Eisner began his career at ABC, and let's just say he was one of the biggest prospects in the industry. For 9 years, he was climbing the social ladder until finally becoming the head of primetime programming. However, that wasn't enough for Michael. He wanted more. He was searching for a challenge, and he found one. His former boss, Barry Diller, offered Michael a job at Paramount Pictures as the head of the film studio. Without giving it a second thought, Eisner jumped on the opportunity. While working at Paramount Pictures, Michael Eisner saw a huge success coming his way, and under his management, the studio became undoubtedly the hottest in Hollywood, releasing films such as Grease, Saturday Night Fever, and many more. Eisner seemed to have figured out the perfect formula for a successful company. Although Barry Diller certainly played a major role in the release of these films, Eisner saw himself as the driving force of the company, and he, again, started looking for a bigger opportunity, and, after some time, he seemed to have found one. He was obsessed with the idea of creating his own empire so that all the attention went to him, and he saw this opportunity in the Walt Disney Studio. Back then, it was a dying company with no light at the end of the tunnel. The workers were lazy, and the company was rarely releasing anything. So Michael Eisner quickly took over. Of course, he couldn't just do it all by himself, so he had to hire some people. First, he named Frank Wells, former head of Warner Bros., the president and chief operating officer. Then Jeffrey Katzenberg embarked on a mission with Eisner as the chairman of the company. Altogether, they managed to produce a series of hits such as Down and Out in Beverly Hills and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The amount of profit that Disney started generating was unheard of even for Hollywood. But that wasn't enough for Eisner. He wanted to turn Disney into something more than just a studio. And so, he opened Disneyland in Paris. He created his own world with attention to details. But the project turned out to be a disaster. Eisner misunderstood French taste for tourism, and Disneyland generated only half of the expected money. That was Eisner's first big failure, but it was enough to make him anxious. He first started blaming Frank Wells, since it was his job to oversee the financial question, and he failed. Then Eisner felt a potential threat coming from Jeffrey Katzenberg's side, since he was taking the spotlight away from Eisner. Katzenberg's hits such as Aladdin and The Lion King made the media believe that he was the mastermind behind Disney. And so, after some contemplating, Hollywood was struck with devastating news. Eisner fired Katzenberg, and then Frank Wells died, leaving Eisner with the task of hiring new companions. Eisner first decided to buy ABC, but managing two big companies was impossible for one man, so he decided to hire Michael Ovitz, a great salesman during that time. However, Eisner was afraid that Ovitz was just a new Katzenberg in disguise, so he would test Ovitz by rejecting a lot of his ideas, which were draining Ovitz. Had he lost his touch? Was he not that great anymore? One day, Michael Ovitz just snapped. He did not pass the test and eventually got fired. That event made everybody see Eisner in a bad light, and so Roy Disney, nephew of Walt Disney, forced Michael Eisner to resign from his post. It was Eisner's grandiosity that ruined him. It's his restlessness that made him continue even though he had already achieved the highest of the highs. All those successes were only lighting up a fire in Eisner's eyes, and his grandiosity was getting elevated to even more dangerous levels. That is why his success did not last long. He flew too close to the sun and eventually got burnt. It is necessary to counteract this grandiosity by keeping a realistic assessment of yourself and your limits.